I've had my Leica M4 for a little over a month now, and in that time I have shot 8 rolls of film. I've developed and scanned 7 of those rolls. The first roll was ruined because of my own idiocy, and the subsequent 6 have been pretty good. So I want to talk about the experience of using the Leica M4 as my primary film camera for the last month. And actually my primary camera, because I've been shooting exclusively on the Leica M4 for the last month. Typically, I would shoot with my Fuji X100VI. This was my primary walking around documentary style camera. And then I would supplement that with shots from my Nikon FE2. It would be probably about 70% Fuji, 30% Nikon. And so it's been a big change shooting exclusively on film and shooting exclusively with the Leica M4. I want to talk a little bit about how I've adjusted to that, what it's like using the Leica M4. I'm going to do a full review of this camera soon, probably within the next couple weeks or so, but I just wanted to give you an update on how I've been adjusting to using this camera. I've never used a rangefinder camera before, and I primarily want to focus on the images that I've gotten over the last month, and maybe how they differ from the kinds of images I would get when I shot film in the past. So, how do I like it so far? A lot. I like it a lot. I find that just the form factor and the feel of this camera is kind of second to none. When you put it up to your eye and you focus, especially with the focus tab that is on this Voigtlander or Voigtlander lens, it is so quick and easy to do critical focus with this camera. The Nikon wasn't bad, but it's different. And when you're looking through an SLR, I've got the lens cap on. See, that's another thing. When you have the lens cap on an SLR, you can't see through the lens. When you have the lens cap on a rangefinder, you can see through the lens. I have taken maybe a couple shots with the lens cap on. I haven't forgotten that too often. With this, you know, because you look in, you can't see anything. So, it's different. With this, when you're out of focus, everything looks out of focus. You can sort of see for critical focus on this, it's a little harder in dim light than it is with the Leica M4, but you know generally when you're in focus because, you know, if everything's out of focus, you know you're out of focus, but getting that real critical focus with the split prism in here is maybe just slightly slower and maybe not quite as easy if you don't have a really nice high contrast area or a good kind of defining line to put that split prism over. It's a little more difficult to get quick focus with this camera as opposed to the Leica M4. With the M4, you have 2 ghost images inside the focus patch, inside the rangefinder, and you're matching those images up. It's just a little easier to see, a little quicker for me, and I've certainly gotten used to it. One thing that took a lot of getting used to was the fact that infinity is here on this lens. On my Nikon, infinity is here. So it's the exact opposite of what it is on the Leica. So that just took maybe a few days to get used to that. The other thing on this is that the minimum focus distance is 0.7 meters. And I'm used to being able to get a lot closer with my Nikon FE2 than I can with this. It's basically about arm's length, is about as close as I can focus with this. Whereas with the 28mm I have on this right now, or actually this is a 35, I can get very close. I think the minimum on here is 0.3. I need to put my glasses on. Yeah, it's less than 0.3 meters. It's very close. The difference in using this as my primary camera over the Fuji, well, it's like night and day. You will see that they are broadly similar in size. I'd say the Fuji is just a little smaller. It's quite a bit lighter. They're close to the same thickness. So the form factor is pretty close. The Fuji is just a little bit smaller. This one just feels so much denser. You definitely feel it on your neck more than you do the Fuji, but it's still not a heavy camera by any means. The biggest difference is that you have autofocus on this. You have eye detect and face detect. You don't have to critical focus. And when I'm shooting with this camera, I'm typically shooting with this flip out screen and using this to frame my shot. So I usually have it around chest level. And it's a lot easier to be surreptitious. It's a lot easier for you not to be noticed when you're taking photographs. And I just got in this habit where I would have it on me and I would have the screen flipped up and I would just use that pretty much always to frame my shots and take my shots. With the Leica, I have to take it up to my eye. And that's not a huge deal, but people definitely notice a little bit more when you do that. But one thing I've noticed is that they don't pay as much attention to you with the Leica as they did to me with the Nikon. I'm not sure why exactly. I know that the Nikon just maybe looks a little bigger and more imposing. It looks more like a camera, or especially a film camera. And this thing just looks, I don't know, maybe slightly less intimidating. So I often had trouble taking candid pictures with the Nikon because I would just feel this reaction. Whenever I brought this to my eyes, people were much more aware of it and they would freeze or they'd stop what they're doing. Or, you know, usually I didn't have bad reactions, but I just didn't get natural reactions. With the Leica, I'm definitely noticing more that I'm able to bring this up to my eye and take photographs of people, and they don't really seem to notice or care, or if they do, it's just not quite the same reaction. So it has improved my ability to take candid pictures of humans when I'm walking around on the streets. That's been a nice benefit with this. The shutter is also extremely quiet on this compared to my Nikon. I can't do the shutter sound right now because I have film in there, but the Nikon, yeah, that's a pretty slow shutter speed. Let's do around 500, 250. Pretty loud. I mean, it's not super loud, but you notice it. And especially if you're just on the street, nobody else is around, people will hear that. My Fuji is the quietest camera I've ever had as far as the shutter. It's a leaf shutter. Nobody hears it at all. I can hardly hear it. The Leica is somewhere in between. It just has this nice little, just barely hear it. And if you're out on a street, you're not going to hear it at all. And that has helped as well. I've been able to be right behind somebody and take a photo of them. They don't notice, they don't hear. So it's been great. I absolutely love the ergonomics of this camera. I've loved just the feel of it, the precision of it. It just feels so finely crafted and finely tuned. A lot of that has to do with this lens. This beautiful little 35mm Voigtlander lens that I have on here. It's the Voigtlander Ultron F2 35mm lens. Its brass body has this beautiful enamel finish over it. Just really nice feedback with the aperture ring. The focus throw is very quick and precise. It's perfectly dampened. I love this focus tab on the bottom of this lens. It has kind of revolutionized photography for me. I don't know why this makes it so much better, but it's so quick and so nice to focus, to critical focus with this focus tab. It just feels so natural. So ergonomically, I have absolutely loved this. One thing that has happened with this camera is I've gotten a couple rolls where there were some scratches, longitudinal scratches over the film. I assumed that there was something inside the camera that was scratching the film, so I cleaned it all out, took a couple rolls, didn't have any scratches, took another roll where there were some light scratches. I haven't totally figured out what's going on. I have a couple rolls now, the most recent ones where there were no scratches. I don't know. It's not my development process. It's not the film canisters. It's obviously, it had to be something within the camera, and I don't know if there was just some debris or something going on, but I've cleaned it out. It seems to be okay now, but I'm wondering if I will occasionally still get these intermittent scratches. We'll have to see. That's something I'm going to keep an eye on, and that's why, again, I kind of want to delay doing the full review until I know for sure what's going on with that. But if there is something going on, that would be individual to my camera, not the M4 in general. So anyway, we'll see. But as a whole, I've absolutely loved this camera, and I've loved the kind of images I can get with this camera. Not that the camera is better necessarily as far as taking photographs. It's not going to give you better resolution. You're shooting on 35mm film. The lens has a lot to do with it. The way this camera works might have something to do with it, just the fact that the lens is so close to the actual film. You don't have a mirror in between or anything. It seems like you're able to get things maybe slightly better in focus, and there is just a certain different character to the kinds of images that you can capture with this camera. But I think the main difference is it helps me take different kinds of pictures. I talked about the fact that I feel like I can get closer and that I can take more natural photos of people. They don't seem to pay as much attention to this camera as they do to my Nikon. So I think that has something to do with it. And I just feel like I'm getting maybe a slightly higher keeper rate with this camera than I did with my Nikon. The Nikon is fantastic. I love this camera. I will always love this camera. I'm sure I'll always keep this camera, and it's great for a lot of different things. But as far as my walking around documentary style film photography camera goes, the Leica M4 is really doing a great job. So let's take a look at some of these photos we have here. I'm gonna put on my glasses. And I've got Photoshop up here. Now, the very first roll, I very foolishly took off the bottom of my Leica M4 before rewinding the film. I don't know why. I don't know what was going through my head. I've never done that with any other film camera ever in my life, but this is what happens when you do that. I basically ruined the entire roll. This is the very first photo I ever took with this camera. The cliche me in the mirror photo just to see how everything works. You can see that aside from these horrible light intrusions coming in because of the bottom being taken off, it looks good. Nice tones, nice and sharp. It's a good looking lens and a good looking photograph. I mean, it's boring, it's just me. But here's what happens if you ever wondered what happens when you take the bottom off your Leica M4 or any Leica M camera before rewinding the film. This is what happens. So here's another example of that. You can see the light intruding basically from the bottom of the film where all the sprocket holes were. So kind of ruined. Most of the images were just completely washed out like this, but that's what happens when you are a bonehead. After that though, I had my first roll that actually worked. So this is an example of me trying to figure out, I haven't been shooting this, well, this doesn't have a light meter on it, obviously. It's a fully manual camera, no battery, no light meter. I did pick up a little Seikonic Flashmate L308XU light meter, and I've been using this most of the time. I usually use it just to get a baseline. So if I walk out and I always shoot Tri-X in this camera. I'm always shooting 400 speed film. And so my baseline, if I'm using Sunny 16, would be on a sunny day, f16 for aperture, 1/500 for film speed. With this, I'll take a reading. I always have to have this set at 500. So I'm just thinking in terms of stops. If it tells me f11 at 500, I know I'm a stop from my baseline of f16, 1/500. If it's telling me f2.8 when I'm in the shade, then I know I'm 5 stops from that baseline. If it's f2, I'm 6 stops. If it's f5.6, I'm 3 stops. So I'm always just thinking in terms of stops, and I'm adjusting my aperture and shutter speed to taste to that. But usually I just take that baseline reading when I get out. Oh, it's f11, 1/500. So I know when I'm in the sun, that's where I'm gonna be, and I'm adjusting based on that. So this picture here is an example of, I think it was a pretty sunny day, but I was taking a photograph inside this shady, overhangy area. And I knew that I was gonna have to be a slower shutter speed in here, and I wanted to see how much it would freeze the action. And you can see that it didn't totally. You get some motion blur there, but it also got a pretty good exposure. Next, here is one just on a bright sunny day outdoors, and you can see, this is at the Lummi Ferry, you still get a lot of good shadow detail here. So I think I was just at f11, 1/500. Maybe I was at 1/250 because there's a little bit of haze here. I can't remember for sure. But everything's pretty backlit, but you still get a lot of nice shadow detail here. So I appreciated that. That has more to do with the lens than it does with the camera, obviously, but just kind of figuring this whole system out. Here, there was just a man with a cane that I liked. But again, there's good shadow detail. You can see what's going on with his dark clothing. Look at that grain, look at that film grain. So it's just a picture. Again, I'm shooting an indoor scene, or it's a partially outdoor and partially indoor scene, so I think I kind of split the difference with my exposure. I'm just trying to figure out exactly how to shoot these different scenes without relying on a light meter. So I'm sure here, because I was probably there was probably an awning above here, I would assume that if I was just shooting out here on the sidewalk, I would have been at around 4 stops from my baseline, but I think I probably shot this about 5 stops from my baseline, so I was probably at 2.8, or I was probably at 5.6 and 1/125 to get, with not trying to blow this out, but then also trying to get a little bit of detail in the really shadowy area there. And it worked. So far, my exposures have been pretty good with this camera. Here is just kind of a hazy day in an alley. Nothing particularly interesting there, but I just found it strange that there were these weird mannequins in hazmat suits in an alley. Here's another kind of cloudy day. This was probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 stops below my baseline, and there was a juvenile bald eagle taking off from this rickety pier that I was trying to capture. And again, trying not to blow out the highlights with the sky, but then also getting some detail in the foreground here, and I think it worked pretty well. I've been pretty happy with the exposures I've been able to get. Here are some cows on another fairly overcast day. I really just like the detail here. I like the texture of the fur, the tones and everything. And again, I'm probably gonna have to review this Voigtlander lens because it's definitely more about the lens than it is about the camera when you're looking at the tones and the sharpness and all that good stuff. But I really like how this lens renders. Now, here's a good example of the kind of pictures I can get with this Leica that I felt, I'm sure I still could get them with my Nikon, but I just feel more comfortable getting them with my Leica. I'm pretty close to these people. I'm taking photographs of them. They don't really notice. I'm able to do more of this documentary street kind of style with the Leica more easily. And I just like this. I like the shadow, the highlights. Nothing is particularly blown out. Nothing is completely underexposed in my opinion. Just a nice balanced exposure there. And this nice little tableau. We've got a dog in a bag, a dog right here, a guy looking at a woman who he finds attractive. And if we go to the next shot, the guy in the exact same position looking at another woman who he finds attractive, who I find attractive as well, I have to admit. That's probably why I took the picture. But yeah, I just like that, these little street tableau scenes. Here's one on a really bright day outside. This was probably right around f11, 1/500, and I think I probably shot it at that, wondering if I was going to get any shadow detail here. I like this because I have a cryptid wandering through here. There is a Bigfoot, and then a man here. I like the little contrast. I like that Bigfoot is framed in here. But yeah, you can still see some shadow detail here. If you go in, you see a little bit of the graffiti on these supports, the water stains and everything going down. Quite nice. Another nice little street scene. Again, just experimenting with my exposures, trying to get in the mindset of I can just look at something and know what I want on my camera. Like, okay, I'm under an awning, so I'm in the shade. If I was taking a picture of myself, I would probably be at 5.6 and 1/125. But I'm photographing these people. There is a sunny sky behind them. They're half in shadow, half not in shadow. So I was probably at like f8 at 1/125, and I just wanted to get. I want that to be automatic, where I just see a scene and I immediately am hitting the aperture and the shutter speed that I think I should, and I think I caught it here. You still get some detail in the shadows. The highlights are a little blown out here, but not too badly. You see everything, at least in my opinion, that you want to see in this image. And here I just liked this dog. Just seems excited to see people leaving the coffee shop. Just a similar kind of scene where you have kind of shadow areas, bright areas, and getting a balance between those two things. Here's just a bright outdoor scene, nothing too spectacular there. Another fairly bright outdoor scene, a little bit of haze, but I think we've got the sky exposed well, everything exposed nice and even. A strange half-naked man lounging around in the grass. I don't know what this guy was doing, but he seemed to be enjoying a nice sunny day. Again, here I'm just trying to get a balance between the sky and the highlights and then the shadows, and I think I succeeded. We have some good detail here in the shadows, and we haven't blown out the highlights too badly. experimentation, getting to know the gear. I just enjoyed this bookseller looking like he wants to kill himself, and then this woman and her daughter browsing the books he has for sale. I don't know. That just amused me. Here is just a good example. I wanted just to get the textures and the tones with these rocks, and then this log, and then the sky in the background. Again, trying to balance exposure. And again, I think I got it pretty well there. I have found the transition to not having a built-in light meter in the camera has been pretty easy. It hasn't been a problem at all. There haven't been any shots that were unusable because of exposure. It's been nice. These two little twins in their dual stroller. Just snap that. So this is an example of me trying to use zone focus. So I'm probably shooting here, I'm probably at like f8, 1/500, or maybe I'm 11 at 1/250, somewhere around there. So I'm probably 2 stops from my baseline. So I've got pretty good depth of field with f11, and I'm probably setting my lens right around 7 feet or slightly over 2 meters. And I just wanted to practice with that shutter speed, with that aperture. Can I get these quick shots where I'm not critical focusing and I'm not perfectly still? So it's just a quick bam, get the shot. And yeah, it's in focus. It is exposed well. It's nice. The zone focusing works at the proper shutter speed and the proper aperture. Here's just a man in a transparent bubble, interestingly. Now this guy, was an interesting fellow who wanted to be photographed. He kept trying to get me to take his picture. And here again, he's kind of backlit, but we still have some pretty good shadow detail here. You can still see everything. I like that. Here he is again, and again, he is basically silhouetted, sun behind him, but you can still make out enough. So I've been really happy with the kind of exposures that I've been getting. I was at the farmer's market the other day, and I just wandered into some sort of protest. I believe it was some kind of trans rights protest. And again, I just liked how close I could get with my camera. These people obviously knew I was here, or at least this person did. But nobody seemed to care. Obviously, when they're protesting, they probably don't mind if people are taking their picture. I don't know. But I was able to get up close, able to quickly snap a photograph, get it in focus. Like, just, it works. This camera works really well. It's allowed me to be better because it's easier for me to use, if that makes sense. Another picture of that protest with one woman looking particularly affected. And then here is the aftermath of the protest. Somebody who I assume was part of the protest, but who seems slightly, I don't know, fed up or disgusted by the whole thing. I just liked the look on this person's face. I enjoy that photo. Here we are still at the farmer's market, and this little kid, this baby, was throwing an absolute fit, and this dog was bemused by the little baby going crazy. So I appreciated the dog kind of giving him a look. Like, what are you doing? Shape up. But again, this is just an example of me using zone focus and being able to very quickly frame a shot and it being in focus and properly exposed. And I feel like this camera just makes that easier for me. This image didn't turn out exactly as I hoped it would in my head, but if you look closely here, and it doesn't work, if the picture doesn't work if you have to look so closely that you can't tell right away, but there is a turtle inside this little backpack. And if you zoom in, you can sort of see it there. The mesh looked more clear than it showed up on film, but this dog has its tongue out, and it looks as though it is staring at that turtle thinking, oh my God, I would like to get a chomp of you. I just enjoyed that, but then it doesn't really read in the picture, so it doesn't really work, but that's what I was going for. So here's an example of a photograph where I was trying to do zone focusing and trying to just kind of shoot quickly, frame while I'm on the move, and it didn't work because I was probably about, I don't know, 5 or 6 stops from my baseline, so I was probably shooting at like 5.6 and maybe 1/60. And that's just not enough depth of field and not a quick enough shutter speed to get these people in focus. I don't think I critical focus. I think I was trying to zone focus on them, but I was also moving. So yeah, not enough depth of field, not quick enough shutter speed. So that was a good learning experience. It's just another photo at the farmer's market that I enjoyed. So here I had wandered to the farmer's market again, but had wandered into a Pride event that I hadn't even realized was going on, so I was able to get a lot of cool pictures there. This one I really like because there's just so much depth. We have someone right in the foreground, we have someone here in kind of the middle area, this person filling the middle depth of the frame, and then more in the background, and then here in the background. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different sets of people filling different areas of the frame. I like that this guy seems to be leering at this woman who is noticing my camera and me and smiling at me. This person dressed as, I don't know, something, just staring off into the distance, and then this person staring this way. There's just a lot of different things happening here that I really enjoy. I like the exposure. I like it. This is one of my favorite pictures out of the last few rolls that I've gotten. So pleased with that. Here again, I'm just really happy with the exposure. This is on a really bright day. It was really hot, and I was probably at f11 and 1/500, and it just worked. Like, you'd think there would be much harsher shadows and everything, but it just looks good. It's a good exposure. It's nice and sharp in focus. This camera makes it easy, gang. The Leica M4 makes this a lot easier. Here, I just like this crowd scene because there is what appears to be an old grandpa, and this is at like a Pride event, and it looks like maybe he's there with his grandchildren. They seem quite pleased. They are shouting, and he is plugging his ears and seems angry at all the people who are also like cheering on the performer on the stage. It's just like, it just amuses me. Here, just another example of zone focusing, trying to snap a quick shot, areas of really strong light, really dark shadow, and getting a nice balance with the exposure. Pleased. And again, here we have people who are in an overhang in a really shady area. You can see how bright it is in the background. So I was exposing for the shadows here, and you still get a pretty nice, pleasing balance of exposure. This isn't so blown out that it's unattractive, but here you can still get all the detail that you need in the scene. Like, I'm enjoying thinking about these things a lot more, like thinking about the exposure, because a lot of times when you have an internal light meter in your camera, it's a reflective light meter, and you have to think, if you just go by the light meter, you're going to have a lot of shots that are ruined, in my opinion, because it's not always, it doesn't know what you want. It's trying to get everything to that middle gray. And I think when you are having to think about exposure yourself, you tend to get better shots more consistently because you're thinking, like, what am I trying to expose for? I don't know. It seems like I get better exposures now than I did when I was using the internal light meter in my FE2. Here we have some furries out in the wild, preparing themselves for their rituals. I love this shot. This is another one where I'm just zone focused, snapping a quick shot, framing it as quickly as I can. I don't know. This one just really gets me. I love the little kid hanging on. You can see his arms wrapped around her neck, her hair kind of flowing all over her shoulder and covering her, the look on her face. There's a little bit of motion blur because they were moving very quickly and I was moving as well. I don't know. I like this shot a lot. Quite pleased with that. So this one I also like a lot, and I hope YouTube doesn't freak out about this because it's not actually showing anything. This person had pasties on, but I just like the gesture she's making as she's looking out. Again, I was exposing for the shadows here so you could see her, but the highlight areas where they're in full sun in the background are not blown out entirely. You can still see detail there. I just like the framing with the trees, the light coming in from underneath, the way she's looking out over the crowd. I just enjoy this shot quite a bit. Turned out well, in my opinion. This one, again, it's this shadowy area, dappled sunlight, and I was exposing for the shadows, and I think I got it. I'm not trying to say that I'm amazing or anything, but I've been really happy with the kind of exposures that I've been getting with this camera when I've had to think about the exposures. And I just like this. I was waiting for a dog to walk by because you have this little stuffed animal dog sitting on the side of the road like he's homeless. And I was waiting for a dog to walk by to get basically this kind of image. I probably could have captured the dog when it was closer, like more directly across from this dog. But I just thought of it as like this homeless stuffed dog watching a real dog with an owner walk by in envy, like the Velveteen Rabbit or something. I don't know. I just enjoyed that. And then finally, this is an example of trying to catch motion with a shutter speed that's very slow because I'm in a very shady area. They were shaded as well. You see the bright sun in the background, but we were under full shade. But it works. I like the motion blur on them. She had some kind of face paint or something, so it makes this interesting look with her face. But they were zipping by. She was pushing this woman on a wheelchair, and I snapped this picture quickly. You can see that this is sharp and in focus, and so is the parking meter here, but it's just their movement that made them a little blurred, but I like it. It works, and I like the exposure as well. So that is the first month with my Leica M4. I have absolutely loved using this camera over the last month. I think in every way, using a camera like this has made me a better film photographer because I have to think about the exposures in a much more deep way than I would if I was using a camera that had a built-in meter. I think it's just helped me understand exposure a lot more. It's helped me to understand more what I'm looking for. And I'm less surprised now when I develop my pictures. I typically know what I was trying to do now when I get a picture back. And usually I have succeeded in getting that thing that I was trying to do as far as exposure goes. And then as far as just the ergonomics, everything else about this camera, it is amazing. I love it, and I still am kind of pinching myself knowing that I have this Leica M4. I will be continuing to use this. I'm going to be taking more digital photos soonish, but I still want to really drill down on this for a while. I'll probably still be exclusively doing film for, I don't know, another couple weeks or another few rolls of film, and then I'll start, you know, putting this one back in the mix a bit and doing it maybe more 50-50. But for now, I'm absolutely loving using this camera, and stay tuned for a full review of the Leica M4 coming up soon. Until next time, until we meet again, I'm your good friend Bradley. You've been the audience. This has been Stuff and Things. I'll see you later.